Okay, I want to welcome everybody to our 288 campus, Friendswood campus, Alvin campus, Webster campus, Pearland campus, and our online campus as well. I am thrilled to be in God's house with you today. Beautiful kind of fall morning outside today, but are you glad to be inside today in God's house? I hope so, because we got a special treat today. Special treat today, but before we get there, next week we're going to continue our study through the book of Revelation in a series that we're calling Between Two Thrones. This title, if you were here with us last week, better describes the epic battle for the souls of mankind that we're gonna start to dig into in our study, and hopefully you're enjoying the study and getting something out of it, and we're going to continue it, okay? How long? I'm not going to tell you. Because I want you to be excited. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to hear from Pastor Tim Moore. Pastor Tim Moore, awesome guy. I met him at a conference in Oshkosh, Wisconsin years back, and we kind of hit it off, and we have been calling each other and texting each other ever since then, and I've learned a lot from him, and hopefully I've helped him out a little bit as well. But he is the pastor of X Church in Ohio. He's also the author of 2 books. Scary Faith, bestseller here, which he wrote a few years back, and then this one was released last week. Last week it's called Don't Wing It. This is how to adult, basically, taxes, relationships, dating, marriage, I can't remember what else, budgeting, buying a car, proper use of credit cards, all the things. Okay, so think in your life, do you have somebody that is almost an adult or is an adult that might benefit from hearing from a biblical perspective about these things? That's what this book is. Or maybe you have like a 40-year-old that needs this book. Whoever it is, maybe you need it. You can buy either one of these books on Amazon.com, all right? So without taking up any more of his time, I would like for you at all of our campuses to give a massive New Hope Church welcome to my friend, a friend of this church, Pastor Tim Moore. Give it up for Tim.
Thank you, bud. New Hope. Are you feeling good today? Yeah, are you glad to be here? Awesome. I am too. Before I jump into today's conversation, I just want to pause and recognize that the month of October is traditionally known as Pastor Appreciation Month. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciate your pastor, First Timothy that I call him. I met him not in the place that he just said. I've never even heard of it. I don't even think that's a real place that he mentioned. I respect my elders, but he is forgetting every time we met the first time, which is fine. But I really believe that God brought him into my life at the time when I needed a mentor, I needed a friend in ministry, someone that I can ask questions and I can just lean on in really difficult times. And your pastor has been that for me. And I just want you to know, as somebody who's traveled thousands of miles to be here with you guys today, that it can be so easy just to get familiar in your own environment and actually don't appreciate what you have and what God's given you. And so I just want to take a moment and honor your pastor. I think we should all do that at every location. Just let's say, thank you, Pastor Tim. You are a gift to the church. You're amazing. He told me if I said enough good things, he might invite me back. So I don't know if I did that yet, but oh man, it is so great to be here. All of the campuses joining in. Here's the thing. I know for the last few weeks, you've been kind of working your way through the book of Revelation. And if you're here today and you're like, that stuff freaks me out. If you're like, all the symbolism and the dragon and the prophets and the weird stuff, it scares me at night and I can't sleep. Well, then I'm your relief week, okay? I'm your little break. I give you a chance to take a breath, all right? If you're someone who is like, no, I love it. The weirder, the better. I want more of it. I apologize for interrupting everything. Come back next weekend. You can hear from the real Pastor Tim. But one of the things that you guys have been talking about, this church has been talking about for the last few weeks, is this question about the church and what kind of church Jesus wants. And I think that's a really good question for all of us to pause and to think about. Because if we're honest, most of us, when we think about church, we are picturing the kind of church that we want. We're thinking about like what kind of music we want, what kind of preaching we want to listen to, and what kind of kids ministry, and what kind of facilities, and do they have donuts at this church? And all these are the things that we think about when we're picturing the church that we want. But I don't know if you've ever thought of it this way, but the church isn't man's idea. It's not religious leaders that at one point came up with this idea of having a church to gather people together so they can kind of move their beliefs forward. But the church was actually born in the imagination of Jesus. This is his idea. You don't like getting out of bed on Sunday morning? Blame him. This is his idea of gathering together. And when I mention the church, here's what I imagine, that all of us come from different perspectives. Just the word church might elicit different emotions in us. Some of you, you might be here today, but you're more on the side of a skeptic. You came because someone invited you, or maybe you just a family member really wanted you to come, but you're not even sure that you believe all of this stuff. I think others of you, maybe your perspective of church is just what you've grown up with. You know, your parents took you to church every weekend, and their parents took them to church every weekend. And it's almost like there's a cultural expectation on you that if you're gonna be a good person, right, good people go to church. And so if you're gonna be good people, you gotta go to church on Sunday. And so some of you, this is just a rhythm. This is just what's expected of you. Maybe some of you didn't grow up going to church. This was not part of your rhythm. It wasn't a thing. And then you had kids. And then your kids started asking you really difficult existential questions, and you had no idea how to answer, and someone in the family died, and they're like, where's Uncle Billy? And you're like, I don't know how to answer that. Let's go to church. They talk about those things. Or it could be that some of you were just so broken and hurting and searching for hope, and you landed here at New Hope. And I think all of us, we all have different baggage and different backgrounds and perspectives on the church. But here's what I really do think. So much of what Jesus imagined, I think, has changed over the years. And I think what we often picture for the church today probably doesn't look that much like what Jesus imagined. If I could, I would love to just show you the very first moment the word church even shows up in our New Testament. The very first moment that Jesus drops this idea, he's with his disciples. And in Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, Jesus said these words. He said, now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock, I will build my what? Would you all say that word out loud with me? I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. Now, this is the first place that you'll find in your Bible the word church in this sense. What's interesting, and you may not be aware of this, is that in your English Bibles, when you read the word church, as we just did, that's not an accurate translation of what Jesus said. It's what's called a transliteration, or some would say it's an interpretation of what Jesus meant. And people have kind of, over the years, church has changed for what we think it is, and it's kind of translated back into the Bible. But if I could just take a moment and show you what Jesus initially intended, it might shift our perspective on what we're doing even here today. The word that Jesus used, if I can show you this in the Greek, is the word ekklesia. Ekklesia. Could you all say it out loud on the count of three with me, all the locations? 1, 2, 3. Ekklesia. You kind of got to get in your throat to say it right, okay? It's a compound word where there's like two little Greek words smashed together. The word ek and the word kaleo. Ek and kaleo. Now these two words, the word ek means to call out or to draw out, and the word kaleo means called. Okay, so if you actually want to understand maybe a better use of this word today, I think a definition, ekklesia is the called out ones. That's what this word means. And so when Jesus said, I will build my church, he wasn't picturing a building. When he said, I will build my church, maybe a better use or a better definition would be, I'm gonna build a movement where I'm gonna call people out of their homes and out of their own life and out of their own story to be part of a purpose or a mission. In fact, this word ekklesia was used in civic terms or in military terms in ancient Greek environments. In other words, when they had a vote to do, they would call for an ekklesia. Everybody, come out of your house, come out of your story, come and be part of this mission, this purpose. We got to vote. Or if the military had a mission, calling you out so that you can be part of the mission that we're going on. And this is what Jesus imagined. That I'm going to build, not a facility, with really nice, comfortable seats and great sound system. I am going to build a movement on the collective calling on each of us. And I just want you to hear me say this. Every one of us has a kaleo from God, a calling. Do you know that you have been called by God? One person? Do you know that you've been called by God, church? No, I really want you to process this for a moment. Because I think most of the time when we hear the word calling, we're like, oh, that's Pastor Tim. Oh, that's for missionaries. That's for staff. No, you have a calling just as much as I have a calling by God. We're all called out to be part of this community. And if I could today, what I'd love to just unpack is what Scripture says about your unique calling and my unique calling and our collective purpose as the church. Because I don't want to just show up every single Sunday because that's what good people do. I want to show up and be part of the purpose, the mission, the thing that Jesus said he was going to build, and nothing will stop it. That's what I want to be a part of. And so if you have your Bible with you, I'd love for you to get it out, open it up, turn it on. I'm going to be in Romans chapter 12. And if you have your digital listening device, you can follow along. I want to look at what the Apostle Paul says, kind of a picture that he paints for what the church is supposed to look like. What is the church? And in Romans chapter 12, we're going to look at this passage that Paul kind of walks through as he's speaking to a church, an ekklesia in ancient Rome. He says this, because of the privilege and authority that God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Now, just to pause, what he's about to say may step on your toes. He's like, this is going to be a little direct. It's going to be a little in your face. And so I just want to say, today, if you get kind of mad and annoyed with me, don't hate the messenger. I'm just reading Scripture, okay? Paul says this, don't think you're better than you really are. I mean, he's trying to pop somebody's big head, right? He says, be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. Just as our bodies have many parts, and each part has a what? Would you all say this out loud with me? Has a special function. So it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body, and we all belong to each other. Now, it's clear that the Apostle Paul is trying to address, if I could say this, a little bit of an attitude that had creeped in to this early church. What's the attitude? Well, he has to address some people and go, hey, don't think you're all that and then some. Don't think you're like so high and mighty that you kind of see the church as something that you deserve. That you see the church as something for you. That you see the church as meeting your needs. That you see the church as like, hey, what can I get from this? He's really addressing this attitude and mindset, and he's trying to kind of bring us back down and say, hold on. When it comes to the church, we all need to see ourselves in the context of community. See ourselves that we are all necessary, that we are all intentionally put inside. In fact, the picture is a body. The body has all kinds of different parts. You got arms and legs and feet and eyes and ears and nose, right? And all the parts matter, and without any one of the parts, it's not whole. That's the picture that Paul wants to give us of the church. And that everybody has something that God has put in them that is used for the church. And so I just want to ask a simple question, and that I want you to think about, and that is this. What has God put in you for others? What has God put inside of you? Not for yourself, but I want to ask, what's God put in you for others? Because let me tell you what Jesus wasn't picturing when he was thinking about the church. He wasn't thinking about the beautiful facilities. He wasn't thinking about a membership roll. He wasn't thinking about one guy, one pastor, few staff doing everything, and everybody else just come and enjoy the coffee and donuts and go home. That's not what Jesus was picturing. What he was picturing was the context of community where every single person has been gifted. In fact, I want to show you that, because this is what he goes on to say. He says, in his grace, God has given us what? Would you all say this out loud? Given us different? Okay, so we all have something different. For doing certain things, I love this, well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you're a teacher, do we have any teachers in the house? Raise a hand if we have teachers in the house, all right? Okay, all right, speaking to you. Teach well. This is good. If your gift is to encourage others, man, be the most encouraging person you can be. If it's giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, man, we need that. Take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. Now, as you read this in Romans 12, what I want to help you understand is this is not an exhaustive list. I think sometimes we read lists like this in the Bible and we start going, well, what gift do you have? That's the wrong question to ask. This is Paul who's looking at the church and he's seeing people with these abilities, these gifts, the way they're wired and shaped. And he's saying, look, if you can do that, do it well. We need that. And here's the most beautiful thing about the imagination Jesus had of the church, is he created a design that makes every one of us necessary. Here's what I want you to hear me say. For today, you are just as necessary as I am. You are just as important as Pastor Tim is. You are just as needed in this church and the gifts that you have than the gift that I have. And here's what I know to be true, right? Let's just be honest. Majority of you, the last thing you would want to do is be up here doing what I'm doing. Like you're like, get up and speak in front of thousands of people? No way, right? But here's the thing. This is why it's so beautiful that we all have different gifts. This I might be able to do. Put me in a room with 25 3-year-olds and I'm scared to death. Like that's scary. Now, one of the things that I discovered over the years of just asking God to use me, however, is I found that people would tell me from time to time that I have an ability to make people cry. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I would just get done preaching and have people come, oh, Pastor Tim, while you were preaching, I was just so emotional. I was just crying the whole time. I don't know why, I just cried. And people would tell me this, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. They're like, no, it's wonderful. I'm like, I feel so bad I made you cry, right? And I found out, like, I have some crazy ability to make people cry, which is awesome when you're teaching adults. It's not so great when you're teaching kids. Early on in the life of our church, we were just a church plant, just getting started. We were having such a challenge for getting people to help teach our kids. And I understand why, especially at a small church. We had one service, and it's like you're missing out. And I also think that a lot of the people who are like gifted to teach are probably doing it during the week, and sometimes the last thing they want to do is do it again on the weekend. I understand that, right? And so they were like, man, we're just having such a hard time. I said, I know what, I got an idea. I said, I'm going to get somebody to preach for me, and I'll teach the kids. Give them to me. And when people are asking, where's Pastor Tim? You tell them, he's back there teaching the kids. That'll show them, you know. And so I did that weekend, and I was back there with the kids, and I'm telling you, I was just larger than life and teaching the lesson, and I thought it went so well, and apparently I only made 2 girls cry that morning. And that's when I realized I can do adults, but I'm not gifted with little kids. But do you know who is gifted with little kids? I'll tell you, my wife. For over 20 years, she has taught in kids ministry, teaching 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds. And I'm just telling you, I've been in those, I've walked in those environments. It takes a special person with a unique gift, a measure of grace and patience to be able to do that. That's something that I cannot do. But listen, that is something that is so needed in the community of the ekklesia. That is not just built on the gifts and the talents of one, but it's built on the sacrifice and the gifts and the talents of the many. And if you're here today and maybe, you know, this is a little bit challenging, but you're thinking, well, that's good for you. I'm glad you know what your gift is. I don't really know. I want to just kind of try to, if I can help, if you're going, how do I discover my gift, what God's gifted me to do. What I'd love to do with the time we have left is just share with you 3 thoughts that have helped me, and maybe these 3 thoughts will help you in discovering your gift. The first one is this. You gotta understand why you've been gifted. This is really critical. Here's the thing about a gift, most of us would know, is that a gift isn't given because somebody works for it. A gift is given just out of the kindness and the love of who they are. Like, we all probably understand that, right? Like, what you do during the week for your company, that's not a gift. You go and work and you expect a paycheck. But Paul says that in his grace, God has given different gifts. And here's the thing about gifts, right? You don't give them based on what somebody does to earn them. Like, for example, Christmas is coming up, and I don't know if any of you have started Christmas shopping already. But in our household, here's kind of what we do. We take a list, and we come up with a list of all the people that we're going to buy gifts for. Friends, family, people that, we like. Well, that's not always true, but people that we love and, you feel obligated to. But we do. We come up with a list of gifts, family, friends, right? And then we take our budget and we divide it by the number of people, and we go, this is how much we have to buy gifts for them. That's what we do in our household. What we don't do is we don't go through the list and go, you weren't really good to me this last year. I think we're going to take 30% off. I didn't like what you got me for my birthday. It was kind of cheap. Like, let's be honest. Okay, we're going to go. We don't do that in our house. Maybe you do it in yours, but we give gifts just solely based on who they are and in relationship with them. And it's the same way with God. When he gives us a gift, he gives us abilities. He puts things in us. You don't have to earn it. It's not like, well, I'm not a good enough Christian. That's the wrong thing to ask. God gives you a gift because he believes in you. He has a purpose for you. And I think a great question to ask is, what am I gifted at and why? Why? Growing up, I never imagined that I would be a pastor. I thought when I was in high school that I would for sure end up playing in the NBA. Okay, you didn't have to laugh. I know it probably doesn't look that obvious, but I was obsessed with basketball, and I played it, and I played it in high school. But I quickly found out that I was passionate. I loved playing, but I wasn't super gifted at it. I was okay. But when you're not the starter and you're a junior, you're kind of realizing maybe this isn't it. But at the end of the day, here's what I just recognized. Unlike LeBron, I wasn't gifted with 6'8" and a jumping out of the ability type of athlete gene, right? I never had that. That's not what God created me for. That's not what he wired and put inside of me. And so I think we have to be honest with ourselves. That's what Paul says. And I want to look in my life and I want to go, okay, if a natural gifting, if a natural ability rises to the surface. So I'm looking at my life and I'm like, what am I good at? Talking. So I got the gift of gab. That's it. You ever know me? What can I do with that? Hey, preaching, right? Like when a natural or a spiritual gift begins to emerge. In other words, maybe you're with people and you pray for somebody and you just simple prayer and you lay your hands on them and all of a sudden they get healed. And that's crazy. You're like, man, God, that's awesome. And then like later, someone else, and you pray for them and get healed. Maybe there is a gifting that God has put inside of you. When that begins to emerge, here's the most important thing to do. Ask the question, why? God, why did you give me this? What do you want me to do with this? We have to start with answering the question, why? Now, if you want help with answering that question, I can show you that God gave it to you for a reason by something that Peter said. In fact, the same Peter that Jesus drops the idea of the ekklesia on would later write these words. He said, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to do what? Say it out loud. To serve others. Man, I am so gifted at this. I can make a lot of money. That's awesome if you can, but that's not why God gave it to you. God put that ability inside of you to serve others. As faithful stewards, I love this, of God's grace in its various forms. We don't all have the same gift, and that's a good thing. And so can I say this? Some of you have the gift to organize, and you think, what's so big about that? You're type A, OCD, want everything in place. Can I just tell you, the church needs people like that? Need people like that. Some of you do have a gift to teach, of all ages. You understand Scripture. You're able to give. The church needs that. Some of you have a gift to lead. Man, the church could use your leadership. The business world, yeah, that's great. But can I just tell you, the church needs it more? Or some of you are builders. Like, you're the kind of people that you're like, ground floor, the hardest time, like, put me in there, I'm a builder. That's awesome, because I believe there's a campus coming soon, Lake Jackson, and you know what? Could use your gift to help build that campus. Whatever God has gifted you to do, use it to serve others. You got to answer that question. The second thought is this: be available to do anything. I think this is critical. Be available to do anything. There's an old quote in the NFL: the best type of ability is availability. And one of the ways I discovered what I was gifted at, it wasn't like I just kind of like woke up one day and go, I think I'm going to be a pastor. I think I'm going to preach. Do you know how I ended up living out my calling? I'll tell you how. I made myself available to serve any way the church needed. When I was 17 years old, I prayed a prayer. Maybe some of you prayed something like this. And I said, God, I give my life to you. Whatever you want to do with me, you can use me anyway. Some of you probably have prayed a very similar prayer to that. I would ask, do you mean it? Because that's like one of those dangerous prayers where you say, all right, God, use me however. And then I made myself available. And in my story of growing up and being around church, I said, whatever y'all need. So guess what? Even when we didn't have kids, I served in the nursery. I helped run sound. I helped youth ministry. I led a small group when they asked, a life group. They said, will you lead one? I'm like, sure, I guess I'll lead one. I played on the worship band. I led worship. I did all of these different things. And I just said, I'll serve any way you need me. And what happened is over time, I started to realize what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. I started to realize what I enjoyed and maybe what I didn't enjoy. But I just simply said, I'm available. And I think in our culture today, most of the time, let's be honest, we're not that available because we're really busy. We have a lot of stuff going on, and maybe I'm kind of important in my company, and the idea of serving and helping this area, that area, that's kind of like, I don't know, beneath me. But should it ever be? In fact, this moment that my father-in-law told me about probably just shifted everything for me. It was when I was younger. He was actually at a conference in Chicago area. It's a church called Willow Creek. This is back in the early 90s. And he went to this conference with a few other pastors. And when the conference was over, big conference, they were walking through the hallways of this big church. And they come around a corner and it's empty. Everybody's gone. And they see one guy down at the end of the hallway, this big old mountain of a man, this huge guy vacuuming the floors. And they just keep walking. They come up on him. And they just wanted to stop and just say, hey, thank you for what you do. It's not even their church, but they enjoyed their time there. And as they come up on him and begin talking to him, they realize that they are talking to none other than NFL Hall of Famer Mike Singletary of the Chicago Bears. And this is early 90s. Again, they won the Super Bowl in 1985, okay? This guy is a legend in Chicago. At this time, probably next to Michael Jordan, he's probably the biggest name in sports in Chicago. This guy had the pinnacle of his sport. Famous, wealthy, everything you can imagine. And what's he doing? Vacuuming the floors in a hallway in the background. And I thought, that's a picture of what it means to be available to do anything. In our church, we have a phrase that we often say. We say, if you're too big to serve, you're too small to lead. And I just want you to hear me say this, that our culture, we got to be careful because our culture actually is flipped upside down from the way Jesus sees everything, right? Because in our culture, the more you make, if you're the CEO, you got people to serve you. The people who make the least amount of money, put them on the door, right? They're greeters when they come in. We have this model that is so flipped, but Jesus says that the kingdom of God, everything's upside down. He says, you want to be the greatest in the kingdom of God, you got to be the servant. You want to go first, you got to be last. And so I think it's absolutely critical for us to take the posture of, God, however you want to use me, you created me, I'll make myself available. And then here's the third thing for me that was helpful, is I was able to find the intersection of my passion and my ability. And I would encourage you, find the intersection of your passion and your ability. For me, it wasn't just what am I good at? But it was, what am I passionate about? See, here's the thing. A lot of you have gifts, you got abilities, you got skills, you got things that God has put inside of you. But I also know that there are things inside of us that sometimes that we're passionate about. There's burdens on our heart. There's some of you, can I say this, as teachers, you became teachers because life was really difficult for you, and there was a teacher that made a huge impact in your life. And you thought, I want to do that for somebody else. Some of you, I don't know what it is, but it was maybe what you went through that has actually created a burden in you. Maybe at one point you were homeless. And so today you have a passion for wanting to serve those who are destitute. I don't know what it is, but there's something beautiful that happens inside of us at the intersection of our passion and our ability. For some of you, can I just say, because I know people like this, that middle school was a living hell for you. And so you think to yourself, if I could just help one of those middle school girls like I was, or middle school boy like I was, get through that kind of season of life and know that someone sees them, man, that would mean so much. And what I'm trying to say is that you and I discover our purpose when we actually step into what God's gifted us to do and what we're passionate about, the things that are broken in our world. When those two come together and collide, man, that's when something beautiful happens. And I want us to understand something as well. Not all the things that we are passionate about are we good at. And there are some things that you're really passionate about, but you're not good at, and that should be a hobby. Like some of you feel called to sing on the platform, but should no way, shape, or form give you a microphone. Like you should sing in the car as loudly as you can, okay? Sing to the glory of God. But when you find what you're passionate about and what you're good at, and you discover that by making yourself available, oh man, something beautiful happens inside of you. There's a purpose. Some of you are going, I'm just trying to figure out what my purpose is, and I'm telling you, this is the key to finding that. And sadly, in church, this has been my experience. I don't know about New Hope, but my experience, sadly, in church, it's always the few who tend to do the most, that carry the weight. Let's change that. Can I just tell you, here's why? Because my perspective has shifted as I've gotten older. I've gotten to watch my daughters grow up in our church. They've grown up, they've gotten married, and I realized something, that it's not my voice that has been so instrumental in their faith journey, but it has been the voice of the men and the women in our community that have helped shape them in kids ministry and youth ministry and young adult ministry. Like, as a dad, do you understand how much that means to me? Moms and dads, as your kids right now are being taught who Jesus is, do you know how incredibly valuable that is for your faith and your family and your future? Like, it matters. And my perspective has shifted even more when I think about my grandson, Cohen. This is Cohen, my 2-year-old grandson. And I know what some of you are thinking, you are way too young looking to have a grandson, and I appreciate that. I really do. But my perspective has changed when he came along. Because now I am seeing the importance of the church, not just in what happens here, but I'm now seeing it through the lens of my grandson. And I'm thinking about the men and the women of our church and the men and the women of New Hope who are going to invest in the next generation. This matters to me. Moms and dads, grandparents, this matters, doesn't it? And he just turned 2 this summer. And at 2 in our church, you move up. You know, he goes from the nursery to the 2-year-old class where you don't just play the whole time, but you also learn about Jesus. And in that first Sunday, he went to his class, and he came out, and we grabbed him, my wife and I. We just doted over him. He's our favorite thing in life right now. And we said, what'd you learn? You know, you're like, can a 2-year-old learn anything, right? That's a great question. How in the world can a 2-year-old learn who Jesus is? Well, they learn who Miss Rachel is. You know, they know who Danny Go is. If you don't know who those people are, you don't have little kids. But he comes out of the class. What'd you learn? What'd you learn, about what Jesus? He says, Jesus feed with 5 bread and 2 fish. And he said, just like that. That's how he does too. 5 bread, 2 fish. 5 bread, 2 fish. And even just 2 weeks ago, my wife asked him, are you excited to go to church? Are we going to learn about Jesus? And he said, 5 bread and 2 fish. And that's when I realized the power of what Jesus intended for the church to be, guys. It's not a one man, it's not your pastor, it's not your staff, your pastors. The ekklesia, the church, is all of us, using what God has put in us. That's what changes future generations, and that's what will change the world. And so some of you are here today, and you maybe feel a little bit challenged by that. Say, Pastor Tim, are you calling me out? I would say, no, I'm not, but Jesus did. Jesus called us all out. The ekklesia is being called out of our own story, out of our own life. It takes sacrifice, guys. It means giving up some extra time on Sunday, Thursday. It means giving up the comfort, risking. I don't know if I'll be good at this. I don't know if I know enough. I don't know. That doesn't matter. The way you discover your purpose is by making yourself available to Jesus. Jesus, however you want to, you made me, however you want to use me. And when we all do that, that's what causes the church to change the world. Thank you, New Hope. God bless you.